one was very special to me because I know who you are already. You do some incredible work in our city as students, from clinics to schools, from working with our youngest children to our oldest adults. You have made your presence felt here in Newark already in ways that are powerful and profound and prodigious. So the chance to share a few moments with you right now is an honor and a privilege for me. To be a small part of this extraordinary day is a gift, and I want to thank you. Yours is the profession where talent, training, and expertise intersects with kindness, compassion, and love. Yours is the profession, the biggest in the healthcare field, that to me is the one worthy of more praise, more respect, and more honor. And so I want to tell you, yes, and so I want to tell you, quite frankly, that today, the little bit of wisdom I want to share with you is wisdom that you already exemplify. I talk to undergraduates at many places, but you all, through your study, your work at the graduate and undergraduate level, is a testimony already to the simple things I want to tell you. But let me go very quickly, because what I want to share with the graduates is really pulling from the wisdom of my family. I'm still a young man, and the older I get, though, the more I feel like I lean on my family's truths that they've been telling me for many years. Now, I have an interesting family because the way they impart these truths varies depending upon the gender of the family member. Now, I have to say, my mom and my grandmother, I talked to my mom at length last night, she has got this nurturing and empowering spirit. Sometimes she'll joke with me when she sees me, like I'm sure some of your family, she'll say, behind every successful child is an astonished parent. And I know you all have left some folks here today astonished. But most of what my mom tells me is very nurturing, very empowering. My dad and even my grandfather, they also are loving, and I feel lucky to be their son and grandson, but they love to tease me and find a way to keep me humble and my feet on the ground no matter what happens. You see, they would show up at graduation after graduation from 8th grade through law school for me, and I would hear the same jokes. You know, look, I admit that I was a scholarship football athlete in college, but my dad didn't have to say on my graduation from high school, he goes, son, I see you graduated from high school, you must think they're important, but don't you dare walk around here like you hit a triple, son. You were born on third base. You got into Stanford University because of a 4.0 and 1,600. 4.0 yards per carry, 1,600 receiving yards your senior year in high school. And I go to college, and I'm graduating from Stanford. I think I'm somebody special. But of course, my father comes up here and pulls out the program and says, son, I see you didn't graduate magna cum laude or summa cum laude. You were just thank you, laude, I'm out of here. And then finally, on my last degree, I'm leaving law school. And my grandfather and my dad didn't say the same thing. They say, son, listen, look here now. You got more degrees in the month of July and you ain't hot. Get a job. And when they see me now, they say, son, you're a politician, aren't you? I said, yeah. He goes, get a real job. So I basically want to tell you one story from each tradition, from the matriarchal tradition and the patriarchal tradition. And I warn you now, when my mom tells a story from this tradition, I love to listen to the story, even though I've heard many of them over and over. I love to listen to this. My mom and my 95-year-old grandmother, they have a penchant for accuracy and detail. When they talk, I feel like I should take out a notebook because I learned some detail that I didn't know before. Now, my dad and my granddad, I love them, but when they tell me a story, they have a knack for hyperbole and exaggeration. When my father tells stories now about his childhood, there's good wisdom in there. The stories are about things that just aren't possible. Like, he grew up in the mountains of North Carolina, and when he went to school, son, in the beginning the school was just a one-room schoolhouse. Now he tells me the stories, and it's a lean-to on the side of a mountain. And my father says, I had to walk up hills The next month was hail the size of beach balls. And then finally, the last story, last year, thou shalt honor thy mother and father. I know it's a 10th commandment, but I had to say something to my dad when he told me that a tsunami hit his town. And I'm like, Dad, you live in the mountains of North Carolina. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I know that did not happen. And my father was indignant. Unrelenting, he said, son, it happened. It was a long time ago, before the internet. You can't look it up, but it happened. And so my two quick stories take from both of those traditions. They're my stories, but the first one is from my dad and my granddad's tradition. A little hyperbole. My second one will be the unvarnished truth of my mother. So here goes. All I want to do is tell you two stories about vision. Two stories about vision, and then I'm done. And the first one from the patriarchal tradition, a story that I tell you and confess to you right away, has a high level of truthiness, as Stephen Colbert says, but not quite true. This first story happened when I was a city councilman right here in Newark. And at that point in my life, I sat on the council, and I also sat on the board of my university, Stanford University. I would have to travel 3,000 miles back and forth. 5 times a year at least, I have to go out to San Francisco and go to Stanford. Now, one day I'm in a council meeting, and we're having a little fight. I don't know what town you are, but when I say we're having a little fight, it was quite literal. Somebody having a headlock. And my aide jumps into the room and says, Corey, man, you gotta go. That plane leaves in 15 minutes. And then he started doing a calculation in his mind, looking at his watch, and goes, you know what? Forget it, man, you can't get on this plane. We don't have enough time, it's impossible. Now, as soon as he let that word slip, impossible, he regretted it. Because he knew, especially in those days, I had a reflexive reaction to that word. Because I was taught that there's no such thing as impossible. So he says this word impossible, and the reflex hit me. I put my hand on my hip. And I said, you know something, my mama told me ain't no such thing as impossible. And this man, I know this mom was already clapping here. And this man just did me wrong. He just rolled his eyes and goes, okay, here we go. And so I said, get the car. He rolls the car in front of City Hall. I run down the steps of City Hall, dive into the car, and we speed off to the airport. Now, I am mayor of the city right now. I cannot tell you we broke any traffic laws. We may have bruised one or two. One or two might have been treated by a nice nurse, but we got to the airport. And I jumped out of the car. Now, there is a mathematical equation studied at the rarefied levels of academia that simply has decided and discovered through study, this equation basically is very simple, that the more of a hurry that you are in, the longer the line at the airport. It's deep quantum physics, I know, but I jump out of the car and I see this long line. But you all know now, I am on a righteous mission to prove that the impossible can be achieved. I'm being called by the higher powers of honor and purpose. So I do what I have to do. I cut the line at the airport. And now I'm standing there as everybody's like yelling at me. People are calling me a mother, and not in a nice way. And I have carry-on bags being thrown at the back of my head. But I lean forward and I tell the woman behind the counter, I go, ma'am, I am on flight 2222 going to San Francisco. Please give me my ticket. And this woman looks at me, looks at her watch, and goes, sir, you know that plane leaves in 7 minutes? Bishop, I'm sorry, there's no way you can get on that plane. It's impossible. My reflex kicked in. I put my hand on my head. And I said, ma'am, you know my mama told me ain't no such thing as impossible. And I don't care if you are Irish or Italian, if you are Korean or New Jerseyan. Woo. Sometimes in life you gotta get ethnic on people. And so I put my hand on my other hip and I said, ma'am, and my grandmama, she told me black people have been making a way out of no way for a long time. I'm not get that ticket. So this woman, she must have known my age because she rolled her eyes in the same way. And she said, sir, you can go ahead and try. So I grab that ticket, I turn around, I start running through Newark Airport, jumping over bags, running around, dodging people. I'm running through that airport like a man from a commercial we don't really talk about anymore. But I get about 10 yards from the gate, and there is this poor woman putting the combination, and I scream at her and I say, stop! She turns around, former tight end from Stanford University, rambling towards her, drops her clipboard. She goes, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Ma'am, I am on that plane." She goes, "I'm sorry, sir, you are not on this plane." She goes, I go, "Yes, I am. I'm getting on that plane." She goes, "Sir, we've given away all the seats. I'm sorry, you can't get on this plane. It's impossible." I put my hand on my head. I said, "My mama told me ain't no such thing as impossible." I put my hand on my other head, but my grandmama said that black people have been making away out of the way for a long time. And then I put my hand on my hip again. And I said, "My great-grandmama." You call her Big Mama, man. And she was a religious woman, and she used to tell me, I sounded like my minister, she used to tell me that I could do all things. All things. And she said, "Stop right there, sir. Before you start quoting Philippians to me, stop right there." I don't need any air rage, sir. I'll tell you what. You're right, there's still a seat left on this plane. And if it's okay with you, if it's acceptable, it's in first class. I dabbed the sweat off my brow and I said, "That would be acceptable." And she opens up the door, and now I'm an 8th child of the 80s television era, so she just opened the door, and I had just moved on up, so I'm walking like George Jefferson down the airway. And this woman, she comes over to me and she says, impatiently at the plane, "Where are you sitting, sir? Hurry up, we have to go." I go, "Where am I sitting?" "Well, I am first class." And she brings me over. This was the first time I had flown first class, y'all. They have seats that are made for former tight ends from Stanford University. And I sat in this wide seat, and then they offer you a drink before you take off. Now, I usually just drink water on planes, but this was first class, so when she asked me what I wanted to drink, I had to do something special. So I said, "Ma'am, would you please bring me some Perrier?" And now she brings me a drink. The plane starts to move to the runway, starts to get some speed going. The captain gets on the loudspeaker announcement and says, "I'd like to welcome you all to flight 7422, going to Miami." That's 2013. I was first class, but I was headed in the wrong direction. Point number one on vision. First class has nothing to do with where you sit on an airplane. Has nothing to do with the car you drive or how big the house is you live in. First class has everything to do with what you know it is. It's the content of your character. It's the quality of your ideas. It is the compassion in your heart. This world will try to distract you, take your vision away, try to move your eyes off the prize. It's going to try to tell you what first class is. That it's about what you have and what you can buy. But first class is more about how you live and how you give. First class is a spirit. It's a way to conduct yourself. It's a knowledge, but I'll tell you this. We as a country are getting distracted, and you all know it. We have a nation that's becoming more and more obsessed with wealth and consumerism, that we have forgotten about the basics like health and citizenship. We face a period right now that is scary in American history, where we are getting wealthier and wealthier, individuals making more and more money. But we as a society are facing more and more challenges for our families and our children. This could be the first generation of Americans where we have kids that are worse off than their parents. Less social mobility, greater healthcare costs, greater obesity, more and more challenges that are facing our kids, and we cannot allow that to happen. We must get back to being a first-class country in every way. And you all, with your vision and your commitment, can help us achieve that. But something critical about being first class